For more on proceedings at the Madlanga Commission today, we are joined by independent crime and violence analyst Dr. Chris de Kock, as well as political analyst Zakhele Ndlovu. Remember, you can also send us your WhatsApps on 072-110-5584, or you can give us a call on 010-594-6010. And you can also engage with us on X at Newzroom 405. Gentlemen, a very good evening to both of you. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us to analyze today's proceedings at the Madlanga Commission. Dr. de Kock, perhaps I'll begin with you. We heard there just startling revelations from Commissioner Spies talking about what had been going on at EMPD with that rogue unit that was reporting to Mkhwanazi, talking about how they were involved in murders, in theft, hijacking, in the taking of precious stones. When you assess the proceedings so far, how would you assess the depth of the pervasiveness of corruption in some of these institutions?
Well, good evening to you and the viewers. I must say, every day I'm looking at this, how things unfold, and I'm just getting more shocked with how deep the corruption is running, how deep the infiltration of the underworld in the police, of syndicates or whatever you want to call them, organized crime groups, how deep they have infiltrated not only the SAPS, as we have heard in the weeks past, but now the Metro Police. I also always thought, why did General Mkhwanazi originally on 7th of July refer to the Metro Police? For me, it was a bit difficult to understand. But now that I've heard what is happening in Kuruleni, and the evidence. Look, all of these must still be tested by the court. And we know that will take years to come. But what we have heard on Friday from this very same witness, and what we have heard today, and even tomorrow morning we will hear a little bit more, I must say I'm shocked. And it's not only, crime like truck jackings and carjackings and things like that, and blue lights, but there's murder. We are talking about murder of, for example, a informant.
I mean, like you say, it's very shocking, Dr. de Kock, with what we've been hearing throughout the weeks, and it just gets worse as we're listening to some of these testimonies. Zakhele, I mean, we heard today how some of those rogue units within EMPD were not only acting out of scope, but they were also acting out of jurisdiction. I mean, making arrests as far as Hammanskraal and Soweto. How do you believe, what facilitated the entrenchment of the criminal elements that we are now seeing, not only in EMPD, but in some of these law enforcement agencies?
Yes, hi, good evening. Thanks for having me, and good evening to the listeners as well. Look, this does not surprise me. It doesn't come as a shock. As far back as when Tambe was still the president, you had the National Commissioner of the Police, Jackie Saleni, who went on national television and with a straight face told the nation that he was friends with an alleged drug lord, Glenn Agliotti. So as far back as then, we could begin to see that there was something terribly wrong with our law enforcement agencies, that somehow they were being captured. And some few months ago, I think it was around May or June this year, the National Director of Public Prosecution, Shamila Batoyi, raised concerns about the NPA being infiltrated. So you can begin to see a pattern here that the law enforcement agents are being are being captured and also in cahoots with criminal syndicates. And in South Africa, we've been hearing about corruption for the past 25 years or so. And so these things do not come as a surprise. The roads, if you stretch your imagination, the roads is everywhere now. So I think every state institution is captured, and this is the reality we face in South Africa today.
That's a very bleak reality for us to face, that every state institution in South Africa is corrupted. We've got a caller on the line, Mulandwa from Kempton Park. A very good evening to you. What are your thoughts tonight?
Good evening, Elsie. How are you?
Well, thanks. And what are your thoughts, Mulandwa?
My thought is that as a resident and the regulator of the city of Ekurhuleni, these revelations are very shocking.
In what way? What shocked you the most?
The most one is that if I was the leadership of the city of Ekurhuleni, by the end of this week, Friday, those people who are still part of the institution of the city of Ekurhuleni, they must be suspended with immediate effect. Because they are continuing to occupy those senior positions while they're implicated in this particular manner. They are compromising the credibility, the governance of the city of Ekurhuleni. But unfortunately, because of no leadership, nothing's going to happen. That is the most frustrating thing about the whole issue. Those people that are implicated, if I was the leadership of Ekurhuleni, I was going to make sure, no, those people who are implicated, who are still part of the institution, they're immediately suspended. You cannot, there's no need to wait for the report of Madlanga Commission. Well, of the people who are implicated and occupy senior position of the state of Ekurhuleni, it's a very compromised situation.
All right.
Because it's going to compromise the credibility of the institution. The institution cannot able to discharge responsibility for having people who are not servicing us as a citizen, but they're servicing some criminal element in the city.
All right, Mulandwa, thank you so much for your thoughts this evening. That's Mulandwa from Kempton Park. Dr. de Kock, I mean, he does speak about what action needs to be taken immediately. We do know that the city manager no longer serves as the city manager of Ekurhuleni, and that the deputy chief, Julius Mkhwanazi, who is at the helm of many of these allegations, is also currently suspended. But do you think that the city and maybe some of the authorities that we are seeing in many of these cases would start to move swiftly in ensuring that heads start rolling, even if we are still at a point where this is, like you said earlier, are still allegations and nothing has been tested in court?
Yeah, I think we must emphasize that. I mean, you know, we know in South Africa, when these things go to court, it may take a very long time. It may even take a long time before it goes to court. I mean, we have seen the Zondo Commission. We have seen no results yet of the findings of the Zondo Commission. Although we see some things happening now. But it's going to take some time. But I think some people were already suspended, like the brigadier, which is constantly mentioned since Friday. I mean, he's the main figure. And I think if there's any other people who are mentioned, they should also be suspended. If there's any more of them, they should be suspended. And I think all of these are people which are flagged now and which should go and give some evidence to the commission, the Madlanga Commission, and even to the ad hoc committee in Cape Town. I find it strange, these two processes running parallel, but if necessary, if the one tests the other one, let them go there and give evidence there, and then we can see what will happen.
All right. We also do have a few WhatsApps from our viewers who are engaging with us this evening. Papi Mogorotsi in Bloemfontein says, good evening. The Madlanga Commission needs more time or extension of its 3 months period, as we're going to hear more corruption work done by our leaders. Then Anonymous says, Ekurhuleni Metro Police, we as former CLU volunteers laid complaints that we were used by Chief Jabulani Isaac Mapiyeye. At the end, he then denied that him and Chief Julius Mkhwanazi knew us. We all have proof. For example, Obi Book, where we were signing duty on almost all of permanent Metro Police officers. We used to work with, and with recognized rather us, we were making the arrest, detained, and we were used as VIP when there's meetings. We have photos and proof. We tried many doors under Ekurhuleni Metro Police seeking for help because we were promised permanent jobs, which never happened. We are the victims of EMPD. We need answers from Chief Mapiyeye as well as Chief Julius Mkhwanazi. Well, those are some allegations made there by Anonymous. We have Zakes Mabote saying the evidence before Madlanga Commission is very disturbing. It is very clear with no doubt that the ANC is implicated. For me, this is more than state capture, and without fear or favor, the president of the country, from Zuma to Ramaphosa, they know about all this. They must be called to the commission to testify. All right, and those are some of your WhatsApps. Do keep them coming in as well as your calls, but for now, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back after this. Welcome back. We are discussing today's events at the Madlanga Commission, where Commissioner Rivo Spies has been detailing what has been happening within EMPD over the last couple of years. We do have a caller on the line, Juanita from Randburg. A very good evening to you. What are your thoughts this evening?
Good evening. I agree with the previous caller that these people should be suspended. In my time, when I was younger, that was exactly what would have happened without pay. I also would like to know who all these commissions that's put together. We pay with our taxes, hard-earned taxes, for this. What has happened about Isidameni hearing? I followed it word for word. That judge was brilliant. High respect for the Zondo Commission. We paid millions, if not billions. I haven't seen one person that's been locked up or a hearing or a court case. And now there's a third one. Now it's the police. Is anything going to happen? This is becoming a joke. And I'm telling you, everybody you speak to on the street thinks this is just another circus. Nothing will come of this. And here we are talking about the police that's supposed to be protecting the people. And we're getting a bit tired that we just have these hearings, everybody gets a fat salary, and nobody is held accountable. It's a joke. It's a circus.
Very concerning indeed.
Yeah, it's no wonder nobody wants to invest in our country. We could have been the top country if we clean up our roads. We can do it now, but for Johannesburg, because of the G20, whatever is coming, but why can't we do it all the time? We can all work together. Why must we stand back for Cape Town? Why?
Thank you, Juanita. Thank you so much for your thoughts. I mean, you raise very valid points there, Zakhele. Juanita speaking about the many commissions that we've seen over the years, and seemingly no action is taken against people that are found to be guilty or should be held accountable when we host commissions and committees of the sort.
Yeah, so this is the problem with these commissions, is that after spending, I mean, if you take the Zondo Commission, it spent almost R1 billion, and to date, there's no big fish that has been prosecuted. It becomes a futile exercise to have these commissions. But also, you have Parliament, which should be doing this kind of work. Of course, right now, there's this parallel investigation by the ad hoc committee. But the thing is that we can't be wasting so much money, and yet no one is held accountable. And the problem in South Africa today is that there's just no accountability. But the problem starts with the voters, is that we have voters who don't hold their representatives accountable when they go to vote. And that's where the problem lies. But then within organizations, I mean, if you take like Ebu Uruleni Metropolis Department, people are not being held accountable. In government, no one is being held accountable. So our main problem in South Africa is this lack of accountability, where people just get away with murder, literally.
Dr. de Kock, we had a WhatsApp from Anonymous earlier on, and Anonymous detailed a number of aspects, and I'm not sure if you were able to get the gist of what Anonymous was talking about, but he mentioned that he was one of those that were hired by EMPD. At some point, they acted as VIP protection services. He says on numerous occasions they've complained to the suspended Chief Mapiyeye as well as Brigadier Mkhwanazi about certain things that were happening there. And he says there is proof that they actually did work in EMPD, even though they were allegedly denied having been working there at any point. He says they signed some of those OB books when they reported for duty. They have evidence of their presence there. If somebody has got a body of knowledge that they can add to a commission such as this, are there platforms in which they could go forward to submit some of this evidence?
Well, I'm certain that as far as I know, they can submit this evidence to the Commission. Anybody in South Africa who have information of how organized crime have penetrated any level of policing can write or submit a document to the police, to the Commission. That is how I have it from the beginning, and I know that there are already some public submissions. The same apply to the ad hoc committee in Cape Town, the parliamentary ad hoc committee. I've heard the other day that they've got quite a few hundred of public submissions already. So I'm certain that this can happen, and I would actually say that people should do this. You must remember that this commission is looking not only at this specific, let me call it a case of the so-called Big Five syndicate, Mr. Kat Malala, the other allegations that we have heard from General Mangwanazi, but it actually should look wider. I mean, there are many other cases which haven't surfaced up to now. But, I mean, there's lots of question marks even on a court case which is ongoing at present of Senzo Mayiwa. There's also the case of AKA, which tomorrow we will see some new developments of people which will be sent from Swaziland to South Africa. But, I mean, there's lots of question marks. And the question is if there were no political interference in these cases, and also if the underworld didn't play a role in the specific cases. But there are many other. The case of Colonel Charles Kinnear in Cape Town, which was killed in broad daylight. All of these cases and all of these should actually be submitted, if I can call it like that, to the Commission and to the ad hoc committee.
All right. Thank you, Dr. de Kock. Zakhele, we heard earlier on in the commission when Commissioner Spies was just talking about the culture of some of these rogue elements within EMPD. And he made mention how they were very dependent on IPID to take action on some of these police officers or EMPD officers that they were reporting. And Commissioner Khumalo at some point asked whether there wasn't seemingly an internal culture of just allowing the sort of behavior to continue as opposed to waiting for IPID to come in and intervene. What were the internal structures and the internal consequences that were taken against some of these officers? What did you make of that, in particular to that internal culture within law enforcement, and whether some of those that are reporting, there's a willingness to report and a willingness to ensure that people are held accountable, as opposed to those that are now fearing to be victimized when they do report on their colleagues?
Yeah, so the problem here is that I think there's a lack of will. And then, but also I think that people fear victimization. But even more scarier is that people fear being assassinated. So right now, this is the problem that, you know, people are scared to do anything because they are going to be victimized. So I don't even think it's a matter of the lack of will. I think more than anything is the fear of victimization and fear of being taken out, you know. And also you mentioned the IP. I'm even thinking here that the IP itself is compromised. You know, if we say the road extends to every state institution, that also includes IP, because you have to ask yourself, all these years, why has the IP not punished those who have been implicated in serious wrongdoing? So I'm not going to leave IP out here because I think it's part of the problem. So I think that we need to look at all state institutions and see how far the road extends. But like I say, you know, I think it's everywhere, and there's this culture of, you know, fear. You know, you don't know who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, and you know that if you report some of these things or you take action, you are going to be either victimized or taken out. So that is the problem we are sitting with today.
Dr. de Kock, what impact does this sort of fear have, especially when it's on a law enforcement agency that really should be looking out for the best interests in terms of security and safety of an entire community when their own lives are not safe?
Well, it impacts heavily. I mean, if you fear for not only your own life, but the life of your family, and so on, I mean, it may paralyze you. It may paralyze you because it's not only your own life, but your wife, your children. So this is actually very true. That I think the fear of police officers to be taken out, and other people, whistleblowers. You know, I mean, we have seen so many whistleblowers, and I mean, people like General Mangwanasi is just a whistleblower in the police. The person who have given this evidence for instance, Friday, I mean, he is actually a whistleblower for on a metropolitan police level. But these people are in danger. I've heard today that he say, no, I look after my own security and I'm very secured. But you know, organized crime, because this is what we are talking about here. We are talking about the underworld, the organized crime underworld, which have grown tremendously in the past 7 years. I mean, there was a report 2-3 years ago of on organized crime, the global initiative against transnational organized crime, and that report clearly documents that we are in a very difficult position when it comes to organized crime. Now, these people have resources; they can buy hitmen for a high amount to take anybody out. So nobody is basically safe.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, let's hold the conversation there. We are speaking to our experts, unpacking that which was heard at the Madlanga Commission today. So do stay with us. We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. We are discussing the Madlanga Commission, where Rivo Spies has been giving his account and experiences of some of those rogue elements within the EMPD. We are continuing this discussion with our panel of experts. Dr. de Kock, what we heard today at the Madlanga Commission also consisted of some MOUs that were apparently entered into irregularly by EMPD with two companies that belonged to Vosmosi Cat Matlala, that being Medicare 24 and Cat VIP. Would you support the hypothesis that state agencies are being deliberately sabotaged in order to facilitate for private sector influence in cases such as these and beyond even just the case of EMPD?
Yeah, I think what happened here is not so much that state enterprises or state departments are sabotaged and then you have this influence from public, from public enterprise. I think what happened here is the same influence that Mr. Kat Madlanga and his companies had to infiltrate and to play a role within policing organizations, within policing agencies, actually. So it was very important for him and Mr. Molefe, the other person that is often mentioned, to have an influence within these police services, either metropolitan or even the national police. Because this is how organized crime work. You need a influence, and you operate under the guise that you are a legal business. Sometimes the difference between legal business and organized crime is very difficult to distinguish. You have a company, a security company, they now try to get a MOU with the Metropolitan Police, but basically they are criminal. So this is not new in the world. You find this everywhere in the world, that companies that work under the guise of a legal firm try to influence the policing agencies. There was reference to Mr. Angelotti and the late General or Commissioner Salebi in the late 2000s. But even there, legitimate companies trying to influence law enforcement.
Zakhele, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. Do you think this is unique to EMPD, where we are possibly seeing a sabotage of a state entity and then a private company? We're seeing it with water tankers in some instances. Is there a prevalence of this sort of behavior?
It's definitely not unique to the EMPD. I think we've seen it in the SAPS. We've seen it even with the NPA. And of course, it extends beyond the criminal justice system. So this is not something that we can say is unique to EMPD. I mean, here in Durban, you have crime all over. And when the first people to arrive at the crime scene is usually the private security companies, right? And some of even the police stations are guarded by these security, private security companies. So I think this is a deliberate thing to weaken state institutions so that they become dependent on these private security companies, especially in the criminal justice system.
Dr. de Kock, as we close off, just given some of the evidence that we've heard so far over the last couple of days, what would you say are the most urgent reforms in order for us to restore integrity, especially within the criminal justice system?
Yeah, it's difficult because if I take more than a month of evidence, and I mean, this is still, even now, early days. We are going to see much more in the months to follow. I think we have to look at lifestyle. I mean, you can't join. We have to look at some basics. A person who joined a police service, whatever police service, on whatever level, I mean, he or she, I must emphasize that she should not join these services to become rich. They should join because they want to fight crime. They want to serve the people of South Africa, of their country. There should be patriotism. There should be not a thing of materialism. It should be, I basically offer my life for my country. That's, I think, where we should start. By the whole thing of looking at why do people join a police service and how they join the police service.
Right. Zakhele, we heard earlier on with Commissioner Spies when Dr. de Kock speaks about lifestyle audits, and he says they had been looking at many of these police and EMPD officers who were living lavishly, and they've suggested lifestyle audits to be done on them, and they've previously been snubbed. So it seems as though there are just some mechanisms that are in place but aren't being used. Where do good law enforcement officers then turn to when they see some of their colleagues behaving in the way that they behave, but it seems as though some of those external structures that are meant to support them are not really giving them that ear?
Well, look, first and foremost, I think when people go to the police force, contrary to what Dr. de Kock is saying, are going there to earn an income. But then when you see some of your colleagues living beyond what you would expect them to afford, then you begin to realize, well, I can't be the only one who is a good guy here. So maybe I should also join them. So I think we have to take into account that we live in a very materialistic society. You see, even our politicians, even at the funerals, they go all out and spend so much. So I think if we can deal with the problem of being such a materialistic society, I think that would solve half of our problem. People are just not satisfied with what they have, with what they are earning. So they are always looking to make an extra income, and usually it's through illegal means. So, but I would say in conclusion that I think that we need to fight the scourge of materialism. People are just so obsessed with material things. It's disgusting, actually.
It certainly is. When immorality, greed meets opportunity, we then find ourselves in situations that we're in. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for your insights this evening. It's really been appreciated. That's Dr. Chris de Kock, who's an independent crime and violence analyst, as well as Zakhele Ndlovu, who is a political analyst.